A very good afternoon to you viewers. Welcome once again to this live program, your favorite program in Berbice, where you could relax and listen to views and perspective on topical issues. Last week, I had the regional administration of Region 6, the regional chairman and members of the RDC, where we spoke about the no confidence motion and some of the works that the RDC will be executing or has been executing over the last few weeks. And you know for a fact that the region work has been put in a stall or because the REO has not been spending the money in terms of executing the program. Last week I promised that we'll be talking about the last election, the general and regional elections, and the results, what have caused us to be where we are, the PPP Civic, some of the issues that we encounter from those elections, and also we'll be talking about the new local government elections. With me this afternoon is a well-known personality around the country and in Berbice, a former Minister of Local Government and Regional Development, a member of the Central Committee of the People's Progressive Party, and also a Member of Parliament, Mr. Ganga Persaud. Mr. Persaud, welcome to this program here in Berbice.
Thank you, Zulfi. It's my pleasure.
And I know that many persons in Region 6 and Region 5 and 6 are eager to hear some of the issues that we'll be dealing with this afternoon. After the May the 11th elections, we know for a fact that the PPP Civic and the leadership of the PPP Civic, the membership of the PPP Civic, and those who voted for the PPP Civic were not satisfied because they were hurt. Mm-hmm. And they were hurt because many persons is of the opinion that the election was stolen from the PPPC. As the chief election agent for the party, your view, what have caused us to be where we are? What are some of the steps that the party is taking now to see how we could remedy the situation? And how the rigging, how the opposition at that time was able to rig themselves into power?
Well, thank you very much, Rolf. And I think that it's to all our viewers, and let me say a pleasant good afternoon to you. And I'm so happy to be talking with many of you once again with regards to elections May 11, 2015. And as Comrade Zulfi would have rightly stated, many of us are still traumatized with what occurred and what took place on May 11, 2015, and also very closely after May 11, 2015, and some events leading up to May 11, 2015. It is for that reason that the People's Progressive Party, my party, your party, again, is #1 political party, will sought to question some of the things that took place under the guise of transparency and democracy in our general and regional elections on May 11, 2015. We have done so in a legal way, the right and proper manner, and we have approached the court to give us a determination on a number of issues based on what we identified are some of the things that were incorrect, improper, and should not have happened. And that's what I think Comrade Zulfi would have alluded to. If I can look at the discipline services balloting, which took place.
And that happened before the ED.
Before ED. Mm-hmm. So when we look at that, so if we are to really judge things basically. The discipline services elections is always used as a trial run, so to speak, to determine the degree of efficiency or the areas of concern that will surround the elections on the big day, so to speak. So it's D-Day as a view of what will take place on E-Day. On D-Day, when we observe what happened, we immediately engage the Guyana Elections Commission, both by oral and written communication, highlighting some things. And what are these things? Voters were impersonating particulars on the list, and they were allowed to vote.
Okay.
So
that is discipline services.
Discipline services. So we clearly give name of polling station, name on which was claimed on the list, and who the persons were. In one incident, We even highlighted where a ballot officer, who's a permanent staff of the Guyana Elections Commission, was giving the list of people who haven't voted as yet to a senior member of the Guyana Defense Force Coast Guard. And that man was sending vehicles to pick up people and bring in people, to the extent that they picked up one individual. When that individual came, our polling agent knew, our ballot agent knew that individual, and inquired what you're doing here. And the guy said he doesn't know what he's doing here. They just sent, the army sent a vehicle, pick him up, and they brought him here. And they said, but this name is on the list. He said, no, I've never had any linkage with the discipline services. And so he was not allowed to take a ballot. And so we highlighted all that, we gave all the particulars. There were instances where in the polling station, some of GCOM staff and political parties represented were sporting paraphernalia and campaign material indicating the preference and the political choice.
So they were sporting or displaying campaign material for the opposition at that time?
Inside the ballot station. So we wrote that to the Elections Commission. We pointed out where that was and so on. In all fairness to the Chief Elections Officer and the Elections Commission, they intervene in most of the cases and correct the situation. But this was after 11 o'clock. So they took their own sweet time in writing what was wrong. We had instances too of where one of the senior functionary of the Elections Commission went into a ballot station, collected a ballot paper, bring the people, the presiding officer and the ballot agent, ballot officer, and allow a woman to vote in a car, and then take the ballot and carry it and put it.
So the ballot was supposed to never leave the polling
Never
station?
leave. So we wrote about all of that. We saw too, and this was alarming, where at one station there were 107 listed voters and 89 of them voted without ID card. These are young soldiers. And when they were questioned by the Elections Commission officials who were on that trip at Camp Jaguar, they were told that the senior officers said to them, you don't have to walk with your ID card. Although they had. So all this, and then this whole bit of impersonation, where people turning up, calling the name of others, without any identity, and the oath was being administered and they voted, although our agents were complaining against these things. So there were a plethora of incidents which suggested to us that the Guyana Elections Commission was not on top of the game, and that the gains that were made from 1992 to at that time of 2015 at the ballot box level with regards to transparency and democracy, that they were threatened. So we hastily wrote and we sought audience with the Elections Commission. We presented these things to the Commission and we were assured that investigation would be launched immediately and that necessary action would be taken. To date, we have not heard a word. The members of the Elections Commission themselves, representing the People's Progressive Party, asked ad nauseum, requested ad nauseum information with regards to this investigation. And this was before Elections Day, nothing happened. Elections Day, we had the worst.
Mr. Persaud, before you go to Election Day, all these things took place D-Day, that the Discipline Service voting day. And you wrote, as the chief agent of the PPP, you wrote to GCOM, you made representation personally. But what was your feelings leading up to Election Day? It seems that like GCOM was aiding and abetting this process.
My sense was that it was the first elections from 1992 that the discipline services balloting was marred with so much controversy. You had our agents were being locked out of minibuses, and the opposition agents were allowed in, and our people were told that you can't come, and the declared space. We had to be calling the chief elections officer, who intervened, and subsequently our agents were allowed to accompany the boxes in those ballot vehicles. So clearly, Zulfi, the Elections Commission was not on top of the game. And the CEO will be asked to say those things at the right time, because we have recordings of all that we would have shared with the Elections Commission and time specific, and we have witnesses who had to get the intervention of the party and the Elections Commission to see that fair play and justice. The other difficulty we had was the sealing of the box. Mm-hmm. We had difficulty with sealing of the box, and those two were reported. Those the commission had to intervene. So my contention, Zulfi, if you had a properly trained staff and you were in charge of this operation, then you hadn't to be intervening on so many discrepancies and issues that seem to border favoritism, one-sidedness, or lack of understanding of your own process.
All political parties that contested the election had their own seals.
Exactly.
And the opposition were allowed to put their seals on. With and the PPP.
We had serious difficulties.
Okay.
Then came Elections Day. And Elections Day, we had such a nightmare. We had such a nightmare. Because usual things started happening. The Saturday before elections was Monday, May 11th. The Saturday before elections, we got a glimpse as to who will be the persons who would work as presiding officers, assistant presiding officers, and so on. Because the election commission members wrote and requested of Suraj Bali to give them this information. And he ruled that they will not have that. The chairman denied all three members of the Elections Commission access to the database of those persons who have been appointed by the Elections Commission to work in elections May 11, 2015. That really created a whole host of issues by itself. Lift suspicion right away. Never happened before in the history of elections management.
So before all the other previous elections, you used to know
the commission members just get it, and then obviously they share it with the party. And then the political parties too used to have access to it, so we could have guided the Elections Commission on some of the incorrect, because it's a mass recruitment and you expect that there will be slippages here and there. So it was only on that Saturday, May 9th, that we got a glimpse. And from the quick introspection and the quick checks that we could have made, we recognized about 80 persons who were party agents who worked in the 2011 elections and who worked in the scrutineering processes as polling agents and scrutineers for the APNU and the AFC. We documented these and we sent it to the Elections Commission saying that, hey, something seemed to be terribly wrong here. You are breaching your own operational procedures and your own standard with regards to recruitment, because you've made it clear that if someone has played his or her hand openly as a politician, that such person cannot, having been aligned to a political party, cannot be part of the Guyana Elections Commission team that will be conducting the elections. That is a standard operational procedure of the Guyana Elections Commission. That was breached. We wrote to the CEO, and the CEO gave some commitment that he will try at that late hour to address those issues. That lateness was created by Suraj Bali and the team, and that would come up at the right time in the Elections Commission. So right away our uneasiness grew, because we recognize that here you have politicians, political party representatives who will be in charge of polling stations. And obviously these people will bring their political biases and preferences to bear on the process.
Just before we move on, I want this is very interesting.
Yes, sir.
Because those people, those persons that were employed by GCOM are selected by GCOM to work, and the list that you mentioned, 80 persons or more, and those people, those persons were aligned to the opposition at that time, the
Yes.
AFC. You didn't find in the list all the 2,000, 2,100 polling stations, what the number. You didn't find any person that were aligned to the PPP.
Excellent question, because the People's Progressive Party, we went through so much scrutiny by the same Guyana Elections Commission that even 1-2 persons who had worked for us in previous elections, long before 2011, and would have stopped working as polling agents and so on, and wanted to get into the election process and apply to the Elections Commission, they were denied. And even some of our persons who never worked politically, who never worked as scrutineers, but because their parents or their relatives are members of the People's Progressive Party, they were withdrawn. And our commission members will provide the evidence at the right place and at the right time. So all that happened, and then came elections day, Zulfi. And it was the worst managed elections that I would have witnessed post the return of democracy to Guyana.
From 92.
And I have been integral and very close to elections management in this country from 1992 up to 2015, and I'm still there. And I can tell you that the elections on May 11, 2015 broke all the tenets of democracy and transparency. When you had voters walking into polling stations and claiming particulars, like in region number 5, a voter walked into the polling station, claimed a set of particulars on that list. The scrutineer, the polling agent represent the PPP.
Yeah.
The name that is claimed is the lady's neighbor.
Okay.
The polling agent stood up and said, "You are not my neighbor, and this particulars, you don't live next to me. My neighbor is in Trinidad." The presiding officer looked at the polling agent and said, "Issue a ballot paper." A person got one. The same situation, that's one incident, and there are many like that, a replica of that. Region 4, another one at Anns Grove. Young voter, very young, turned up to claim the particulars of someone who photographed in the profile that they give to the agents.
Right.
Is a Rastafarian individual in his late 50s that can be seen.
That was on the photograph.
Yes.
Okay.
And this guy coming in, young guy, very young guy, to claim that particulars. When one of our officers representing the party was in that polling station at the same time, and he objected to it, the young man ran out of the polling station. The man was going to be given a ballot paper. You have across this country, in Region 6 too, there were many, many cases of impersonation where our polling agents said that this photograph does not match the individual who is presenting him or herself. And yet the presiding officer went ahead and issued ballot to those people. The people just put up their hands and took something like an oath. All that went on. And we keep, as these incidents were coming in, we were documenting them, and we were putting the evidence together. We were calling the CEO, and we were sending the information to the CEO. There were instances here again in Region 5 and in Region 6, where members who voted in the advanced balloting, that's the Discipline Services balloting, returned on elections day, and they claimed particulars on the list and voted. They were allowed, although our agents objected to that kind of thing, that these people are discipline services people and they should not have been allowed to vote and so on. We called those people. In one instance, the CEO responded. He said, "Man, that the person was, this is junior and that was senior." You know, it's the same name, but you know, it's junior, senior, and so on. Things like that we got. So we had that kind of discrepancy. We also had instances on Region 4 East Coast in particular, and on Region 5, some part in the West Coast of Berbice area, where our polling agents were prevented from accessing polling stations and being admitted in polling stations. You had in quite a number of villages opposition support areas where there were steady crowded build-up around polling stations, intimidating voters. And in the city of Georgetown, you had misinformation officers standing outside, misdirecting people, people turning up to vote, and telling them your name is not on this list, you have to go there and go there and go there. So they had people in this merry-go-round. A lot of our comrades didn't give up hope, and I want to commend and thank all that 200 and what GCOM said 202,000 voters that they gave us, and they gave the opposition I think 2,000 and 5,000 or something like that. They themselves, they have given us so many different figures, about 7 different figures post-elections. So all that was taking place.
But tell me something. You mentioned some area, particular area, Region 5, Region 6 on the East Coast. But what about places like South Georgetown, where the opposition, where that area, those areas are considered to be so-called opposition stronghold? What took place in those areas? Did the party, your party, the PPP, did the PPP was allowed to send polling agents in those areas? Because I know for a fact that there was a reported cases of violence too in places like Sophia and things like that. What took place in those areas?
Oh, well, those areas, what happened is that the crowd, as I said, these crowds were encouraged to be around these polling stations, and there were constant intimidation, there were constant harassment, and our officers, our officials, were prevented from entering some of these stations to the extent that Kwame McCoy, who was operating as a cluster leader for the People's Progressive Party, he was beaten and, you know, he suffered a broken jaw and all those kinds of stuff. Serious injuries to that young man. And similar situations were playing out all about. The mobs were there and they were preventing people from voting. They were intimidating people from voting. Some of our polling stations were, our agents were disallowed from entering polling stations. So there was some free-for-all. Some of our polling agents had to wait until GCOM officials could have installed them into polling stations. And so there were a number of hours when some of these places operated without our polling agents, and serious intimidation and all of that. Some of our polling agents were not allowed to leave the polling station to go and cast their ballots at polling stations that were just nearby and all of that. So there were many things that sought to put the elections under siege. In South Georgetown, in Linden, there were a lot of things that happened that showed, well, okay, this was not an election, basically. This was a manipulation, and that the Guyana Elections Commission was not in charge. There was some other force that was in charge, and that force was basically Suraj Bali and a team of people working in concert with the opposition party. The night in itself of elections, that would have brought so much suffering onto this nation and onto Guyana, because that night in itself, the Guyana Elections Commission could not have delivered one result to this nation, not one. They summoned the People's Progressive Party somewhere, I think, around between 3 and 4 o'clock. That's the morning of the 12th. And we went there, a delegation of us went there. And the chairman painted this picture that there was a siege, a road blockage on the east coast of the Marara that was preventing ballot boxes from reaching his headquarters, the Guyana Elections Commission. And the chairman, instead of talking with those who had the authority and power to prevent people and remove obstacles to allow free flow of traffic, called in the PPP. All this was strategy in terms of buying time, because it was at that stage that they would have done what I will share with you in a minute or so. They were busy manipulating this stuff. The PPP said very clearly, we don't have anybody out there blocking any traffic or blocking any vehicle. Who got them? Tell them.
Right.
You know. So we were very, very clear, because by that time we knew what was going on. Anyhow, all that happened, and we were waiting. Our assistant elections agent across the 10 region kept waiting on the returning officers to call them to sit down and to go through, as the law required, box by box the result before a declaration can be made. And that's the law. The law says that before the Elections Commission can make any declaration, that the returning officer should make the declaration in his region. I'm talking about accumulative declaration, not box by box declaration, individual releases. That's what the law stated. The entire Tuesday would have elapsed, and the returning officers were waiting instructions from the Guyana Elections Commission when to engage us to start. And so no result was released again. Only on Tuesday afternoon rather, after the APNU and AFC coalition would have met GCOM, at which our commission members were present. And there was serious insistence from foreign powers too, that the Elections Commission should declare results. And the CEO made the disclosure that he is very uncomfortable with quite a number of the statements of polls received, because some of the statements of polls that are in the Guyana Elections Commission were not printed and issued by the Guyana Elections Commission. So that can be deemed as fake.
Fake statement.
Because if I didn't give you this, how come it's coming back to me? Where my things were printed in Canada? Where were these things printed? The alignment of these things are different from what I would have put out. That's what the CEO said. Apart from that, he also said that the figures, some of the figures that he is seeing on some of these SOPs are different from what the political parties got as their statements of poll. And he also said that some of the figures would have reflected that more persons voted in some polling stations than persons that were listed to vote. So those were some of the issues that no other than the chief elections officer would have put into the public domain. He did that. And so he was instructed by the commission, well then declare what you're comfortable with. So there were like 2,200 and let me say 80 ballot boxes in which results were to be declared. The chief elections officer, my understanding, declared 1,800 results in his first declaration. One can assume then that there were over 400 boxes or 400 statements of vote which the CEO himself was uncomfortable with. And so that's the reason why he didn't declare those results. Only for all sorts of manipulation and machinations resulted, and a result that is declared that seemed not to reflect the true will of the Guyanese public.
Just, Gang, the election results that were declared by the GCOM, and you mentioned about the fake statement of poll, which I believe many persons in the country knew, looked and saw in the press and things like that, and also look at the television when results were declaring, and also this matter that you just mentioned was mentioned by the chief election officer publicly when the journalist asked. Your statement of poll from your party as the chief election agent would have come to you. And when the chief election officer would have declared GCOM's result, including some fake statement of poll, when the total result would have declared, your statement of poll, or some of your statement of poll, were different from his?
Yeah, because when we found that, that's a very interesting point, Zulfi, and thank you very much. When the returning officer for Region 4 called our people finally to sit and verify, we had, for the East Bank, Mr. Neil Kumar, a senior thoroughbred politician who have been through many, many elections. For Georgetown proper, you had Charles Ramson Jr., a lawyer by profession, someone who has been very, very close to the elections machinery, young, smart, and energetic. And you had on the east coast of Demerara, Umar Sharif, permanent secretary at that time. These were the three persons representing us along with our clerical support activist team that went in. The returning officer, when her agents start calling out results, we found instances where, and I remember this one right away, where there was one ballot box which the PPP got 263 votes, and the APNU, 283 votes. The APNU AFC got 20 votes there. What these people did on that statement of poll, they changed the 8 in that 283 and make that 0.
Okay. For the PPP?
Yes. So the PPP ended up with 203. And what they added now, that to the APNU. So the APNU ended up was 263, sorry, it was 263. So the APNU ended up with 83 votes, 80 votes. 80 votes they got, because they had gotten 60, they had gotten 20. You take out 60 from the top, you add that to the bottom. So all that they did was to change the middle, the number in the tens column. So 263 was changed to 203, and 20 was changed to 80. So when we recognized that, and there were a number of statements of poll like that, 20 something very quickly, that we identified. And the very night, we called in the diplomatic community and the observer missions, and we gave them copy. We said, look, this is what the RO gave us, this is what we have as our statements of poll. We even went to the Elections Commission with that package. We met with the entire commission, and we said, look, this is what you have here. The president then, Commandant Ramatar, said to Suresh Bali in the presence of his CEO and full commission team, he said, look, we're giving you this list of 30-something ballot boxes, I think 47. And he said, all that I'm asking you, call all them observers and so on that you got, and them political parties, open any one of these boxes of your choice. And if the results in that box conform with what this PPP says, then you have to open the rest of the boxes.
Right.
If the result conforms with what the RO statement of poll said, well then we concede. So Bali said to us at that meeting, he said, we not going to check one, we go check all. And we left that meeting with this assurance that justice is going to prevail. You know what kind of justice prevailed? The results were announced.
Without checking those boxes?
Yes, without checking those boxes. We put in requests for recount across this country after we recognized that the number of rejected ballots were like about 4,000. So we put in requests for these recounts.
You never got those?
We never got these recounts except in region number 2, where they checked only the rejected ballot. When we asked for limited recount, they only checked the rejected ballots in region number 2. Nowhere else. In region 8, where the difference of vote was 1, to win the constituent, the geographic seat for region 8, to win that, the difference was 1 vote. We made requests to recount 12 boxes in that region. They have not recounted 1, because we had one box in which 2 votes were rejected because the people marked the X in the cup. And we said to them, let us go to that box and the PPP will win that geographical seat in region number 8. They refused that. And so it's the first country in the world where the law says that if the people request the recount after the ROs have made their declaration, that you should grant that recount.
Right.
There's no discretion, you must grant that. And it is the first country in the world that claimed to be democratic that has not allowed that. Yes, there are dictatorial countries in where recounts requests were submitted, but never.
Gangs,
but
I know
finally, before we go on the ones, let me just make this one point on this. On to today, the returning officer, region number 4, she declared the results whilst we were meeting with the Elections Commission at 9:30 on that Friday morning. From the time the law says that once that declaration is made, the political party has 24 hours in which time to submit a request for recount. The returning officer closed her office, went into hiding, and we could not have found her. The chief elections officer refused to assist in locating her. The chairman, Suraj Valley, he could not have found her. And minutes to 12 o'clock that day, we were able to submit our request for recount to the chairman of the Elections Commission. So this is what the Elections Commission would have done. Yes, Wolf, I'm so sorry.
I think time is going and we have to take calls too.
Yeah.
But I think this is a very interesting topic because many Barbadians wants to know what went wrong. And you have mentioned a lot of issues. Now, seeing that the election was massively rigged according to those information that you just gave, what's the next immediate step that the party has engaged in? And what, because many persons now out there are saying that they have a lot of hope that the PPP has filed an elections petition, and they feel that when the court will rule in favor of this petition, and they have a lot of hope out there that we can have an election early again. But your view as the chief election officer for the PPP?
Thank you so much, Zolf. Yes, what the party has done, the party has put the best team forward, best legal team possible. Heading that team is no other than our former Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Comrade Anil. And we have brought in the best constitutional lawyer that we have in the Caribbean. He was here with us and he made his first presentation in our preliminary hearing. And I think he's done an excellent job. I'm so pleased. And there are a number of other local lawyers as well as another international lawyer with whom the party would have had discourse representing our team. So with regards to that, yes, it is costing our party a huge sum of money to have the services of this legal team, but the party recognized that the excess of 200 and something thousand people who voted for us, you deserve no less than the best that can be given in terms of legal representation. So our party is going down that route. Yes, the government is seriously delaying us getting to the hearing of the petition. It's the first country in the world where an elections petition was filed and the Elections Commission has moved to the court to throw out that elections petition without allowing the petition to be heard and the commission presenting its evidence to that commission when the petition is being heard to show that, okay, they were above board. Here, what they tried to do and what they're doing is to try to get this petition thrown out. So the chief elections officer, acting on his own, not with the blessings of the Elections Commission, the chief elections officer has gone ahead and filed this summon to throw out the elections petition. Can you imagine that?
So that means that there's something to hide.
Definitely.
Right? If you know that this election was transparent and open and you know that it can stand above board, why are you trying to throw out a petition?
You're so right, Zulfi. Suraj Bali could blow hot, he could blow cold. You, the viewers out there, you be the judge. If, as Zulfi rightly said, you don't have anything to hide, well then let the court hear the petition, provide your evidence, and then vindicate yourself. But it seems as if you got a lot of skeletons in the cupboard. We're going to find them, you know, and that's what we want to say to all our viewers out there. We are going the full works. Yes, what can happen? The elections, there is a little difficulty. The Chief Justice will be defeating that office, and so another judge will have to take over, and so the judge will need a little bit more time now to study the case and so on and so forth. So we have difficulties there. The petition will move its course. We are hoping to win it with your support. I'm certain we can do that, and if we win it, then let us all hope that we can get to that point of where the judgment will be won in such that elections has to be held earlier than it is. And you know what would be the best thing? And this is my personal view and opinion. Twice the PPP were robbed out of its full terms of office. Comma Janet, the Hormanston Accord took away, in 1997, took away 2 years from her elected 5-year period, and Comma Donald Romatar, the 2011 proroguing of Parliament because of the non-cooperation of those destructive elements who are now in government, would have given up 2 years of his government. So I'm hoping that this petition can bring to light and cause a reduction of this 5 years misery, which incompetency, which irregularities and deficiencies would have placed on the backs of us as Guyanese people.
We are out there. You are looking at a live program. With me is Mr. Ganga, Persaud, former Minister of Local Government and Regional Development. As I said earlier, we will be taking your call, but we have another very important issue too, the upcoming local government election, which we'll talk about as we take your call. So we'll take your first call. Hello, good afternoon, callers.
Hello, good afternoon. I like your conversation, but I will tell you something. I vote for this government here right now, but I will never vote no more back because all government is a fooler and is a liar.
Where are you calling from?
I call it from Shieldstone.
Shieldstone.
Yeah, I will never vote back no more because everybody's a fool. Politics is the biggest game.
But why you say you would not vote again?
Because every leader is a fooler.
But let's talk a little bit.
Yeah.
For you as a Guyanese,
yeah,
you think the country is better off now than before May the 11th?
I'm telling you, every politician.
Nobody answer my question, brother.
Yeah.
I'm just asking you a question. What is your view about the performance of the country now?
It's nothing good.
Nothing good. But you think the country is better off than May the 11th?
I was told you not do nothing good for us.
Okay. Yeah. Well, probably that is your view, but by the time the election come around, your views might change.
Never.
All right. Thanks for the call. I think this call is frustrated because...
Yeah, and you can't blame them. You see, when politicians make all these kinds of promises out there, and people give them the vote, people expect that by God you're going to give us something that you promised, or you're going to give us an explanation. What has happened? And this is, the caller is echoing the sentiments of many Guyanese. What has happened? These people have given to themselves. They said to all this nation, we're going to pay you, we're going to give you this % of increase, that % of increase. But what they did, they give themselves a 100% increase, 50% increase, and give the people 5 and 8% increases. And the sugar workers no increase.
Hello, good afternoon, callers.
Yes, good evening to you, Mr. Mustafa and Mr. Ganga Persaud.
Good evening, buddy. How are you?
I'm alive and well, man.
Good, I'm glad to you.
As the first caller said, right, there is frustration in the entire Guyanese populace. All right, not what we have expected. Okay. But the fact remains that if what you're saying this afternoon is true, let us give you the benefits of the doubt. But I want to say that it might have been in collaboration with the OAS, which is the Organization of the American States, along with some of our locals. So let us give them the benefit of the doubt. I say again, Mr. Mustafa, I voted for the change. But then the fact that the caller did say is that we are being made political pawns in the political arena of a chess game. And it's unfair to the people. But let us be more realistic and talk about what is happening in Region 6. 260 million being allotted to the NDC.
Not the NDC, the RDC.
No, sorry, the RDC, as a matter of fact.
Right.
Sorry about that. To the RDC. And believe you me, most of you were there and you know that a lot of work is needed to be done in Region 6.
No, but just take a pin there. I will leave you on the line.
Okay.
Remember last week I had some regional officials with me.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you because he was a regular caller to this program.
Sure.
The $260 million, you're right, those money were given to the region to do capital works, new works in the region.
Yes.
And the guys explained last week why they had to move a no confidence motion against the REO. Because out of the $260 million that were allocated to Region 6, to date, they have only expended $15 million. And because of that, the REO is not, because the REO is the accounting office, and Mr. Ganga will tell you that he was the minister in the Ministry of Local Government, minister in charge of all the regional administration.
I'm aware of that.
He can tell you that he would have to call the REO from time to time to ensure and check on the budget and also report to cabinet. And because of the REO inaction in Region 6, there are a lot of works. I agree with you. And there are a lot of areas that need these development, but the REO is not spending the money and ensuring to take the program. The region, the RDC, is being controlled by the PPP. You know that?
Yes, I
the
know.
regional chairman explained last week that, look, they are making the policies. They are putting the program in. The REO is the chairman of the tender board. He has to sign the check. He has to sign the works, the accounting, what you call it, certificate, when the works committee finish with it. But the point is, he's not pushing it. And who is the REO of Region 6? You know that.
Yeah, that's right. But the fact remains, I just want to say this, that is unfair to the people. It's unfair for development, for the people to make us comfortable. We're talking about roads, we're talking about water, we're talking about lights, we're talking about
so right.
we don't have to long dry spell. What has happened most of all, if the little rain come down, is that the mosquitoes come in, right? There are so many things to be done, and let us just put it to the reality that, let us put it that, okay, that it might have been a little more than 15 million, but oh my God, let us put it to 40 million. What happened to 220 million not being utilized that was allotted?
Well, you're so correct. You're so correct, Carla. What has happened? Can you imagine? The budget, the capital budget was cut by some 400 million. If all that was requested for by the region was given to the region, what this REO would have done to these people. It is a criminal offense to withhold development from an area, whichever government it is. The government has given the money to the regional government to do the work. It is a criminal offense to keep those development away from the people. And the REO should be pulled over the coals in no uncertain way to ensuring that the people get the benefit and the development that you request.
Good afternoon, Carlo. Welcome to this live program.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
I am very much delighted to see Mr. Ganga there.
Okay.
Thank you, comrade.
Ganga is an expert
Where are you calling from?
management. Alvin.
Okay.
He's an expert in election management. I worked under him,
Okay.
Thank you.
under election.
Okay.
He's an expert.
Yes, yes, Mr. Ganga. Mr. Ganga knows the election process in out.
He's supposed to be the chief elections officer after Mr. Stanley Singh.
Okay, okay.
I remember that. I worked with him.
Okay.
And I want to compliment him tonight for giving us the details of election.
Well, I have to bring him back another day because he only meet half of the stage. You have to come back and explain the rest of the issue. Thanks for the call, though.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Persaud. Now, this local government election coming up, just for the viewer to know, I have to bring you back here another day. Would the PPP contest the local government election?
Oh,
seeing
yes.
that Suraj Bali is still at the hems there.
The Suraj Bali is an individual.
Let's take this last this caller before you. Hello, good afternoon, caller.
Good
Good afternoon. Welcome, Comrade Ganga.
Thank you, my comrade.
Comrade Mustafa.
Hi.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I have some contribution.
Just speak up. Just speak up.
Yeah, I'm speaking about this local government election. Now, this chap Suraj Bali and the chief election officer,
Lowenfield, yeah.
You think I agree to go for this election within 2 chapters?
Well, I'll just ask Mr. Persaud that question, and he will explain just now. Listen to the answer you will give me, right?
Now, wait, hold it. Now, tell me something. If the party deny this election, say no, he's not going to election, what can be wrong?
All right, he will explain all those things
Because
just
of
now.
them two fellows there.
Okay, good. Thanks for the call. Mr.
Yes, sir. That's a very good question. Suraj Bali is an individual, and the PPP position is that we will never allow one individual to trample on the rights of thousands of individuals. And so, irrespective what, we would be far more comfortable with Suraj Bali not being there at all, nowhere around our election process. We would have been that comfortable. Irrespective if he's there, the PPP going to make sure that we stand up for the right of our people. Our people at the local government level need renewal. And if going to an elections to satisfy our people, we will do that. But the ideal situation, or what we prefer, is to have Suraj Bali nowhere close to our elections process. And I think that that is not only our feeling as a party, but most Guyanese out there. The Elections Commission, Guyana Elections Commission, has never been, since the return of democracy to this country in 1992, has never had such a low image in the eyes of the populace of this country.
Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to this live program.
Good afternoon.
Just turn down the volume of your television.
I'm calling to address Ganga Persaud, that thief.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much. How are you? You still got the bit that I left with you, right? Must give me back, right?
Yes, Mr. Persaud. The caller asked another question. If the PPP don't contest the election, what would happen?
Well, if the PPP don't contest the elections, in 1994 you had such a situation where a number of NDCs were non-contested by any other party but the PPP. And so the PPP won those areas. If we don't contest, it means therefore what would be placed on the backs of our people would be minority leaders at the local level. They will impose leaders on our people. Like 2 days ago in Bartica, and right here in Region 6, you can empathize to what I'm saying. The municipality of Corriverton and the municipality of Rose Hall, the people are given 1 day notice, told, go home, we don't need you anymore. And a new council, handpicked by who? The minister and his cronies, Bulkan and his people, were handpicked and put in to run the council. If we don't contest the elections, then this will definitely be a manifestation. And we can allow our people who are our supporters and who really want to see Guyana continue to run.
But they haven't disbanded the New Amsterdam one.
But that's a good point. New Amsterdam is struggling to have a quorum, but they haven't touched that. Linden, which is an IMC that was put in during the PPP civic time,
They haven't touched it too.
They haven't touched that. So this government is really showing its hand, and its hand is not one that is reflective of the ethnic kaleidoscope of this beautiful land that is called Guyana.
Caller, you're looking at this live program with me is Mr. Ganga Persaud, Member of Parliament and Central Committee Member of the People's Progressive Party. As I said last week and the week before, that I will not take calls that you call when you call out of area private. I want to ensure, because some people call in and make very bad remarks, and they are not brave enough. If they have an issue, they are not brave enough to ventilate those issues. And I think that when we doing these programs, if you have an issue to raise with us, kindly raise it in a way, in a civil way, so that we can deal with the issues. Yes, but this election will be, I think, a different type of election than previous.
Oh yes, for sure, Zul, because the elections is a very, very complex one. And it is only unfortunate, real unfortunate, that the Guyana Elections Commission has not stepped out to explain this complexity to the people. I asked all our viewers there, even my Tiefin friend, I asked us, do you know which constituency you are presently residing in for this local government elections? You know who has that responsibility to cause us to know that? The Guyana Elections Commission. And if you don't know, then they haven't taught you. And if they haven't taught you, then we can say in one breath to the Guyana Elections Commission, you are failing this nation again. Will we, as citizens, sit back and allow this to happen? That's the big question.
And you have a very important period now going on. What's the really taking
Well, we got the claims and objections period going on right now. And this period here, there's a big issue. You got a number of staff, 160 offices operating across this country to do claims and objections in the 71 local authority areas where they're dealing with 580 lists. And this is happening in our country by staff who none of us knew how they were appointed, because there was no public advertisement one way or another. Anyhow, the claims and objections period run from November 9th and it will end on December 6th. That's a claim period. And the objection is from November 9th to December 30th. During this claims and objections period, you can visit these offices closest to where you live.
Let's take the last call. I think we are coming to program time. The operator already indicated to me. Good afternoon, caller. You are live on this program.
Hey, good night.
Good night.
Good night, sir.
Can you shed some light upon this electronic tabulation for the local government elections? Will this be at an advantage for the party in terms of correcting the irregularities that transpire that happened on May the 11th? And my second question is, if GCOM happens to move forward with the same staff or same workers that work on that day, on May 11th, how does the party intend to protect the ballots or protect the democracy of the people at these elections?
Okay, thank you for the call. Where are you calling us from?
Barcelona.
Okay, and Mr. Persaud will answer those two questions.
Two very great questions. I really wanted to commend that caller. That caller seemed to understand very well the whole election mechanism. The first one deals with the electronic counting, and that's what you call a Delan project. In that, the manual system in itself runs on. The ballot is franked or scanned, so to speak, and then passes through that counting machine. So it tells you also, it does that counting there. In itself, yes, that will minimize this number of rejected ballots and also ballots that are cast for one party being placed into the stock of another party. So there are some advantages, not for a single political party, for the entire electoral process in our country if we use that counting mechanism. But that will not be sufficient enough to negate all the difficulties and all the irregularities that took place on May 11, 2015. An enhanced biometric system, complete enhanced biometric system, will bring greater comfort to all involved in elections in our country. Political parties, the Elections Commission, and even the voters themselves. So that is the way to go, advance, enhance biometrics. And there are many models across the world.
We have come down to program time. I see the operator very anxious in there. I want to say that just before you close, one other question. The guy asked that if none of the reform that the PPP asking for has not been, they don't implement any of those reforms, and you have the same system with the same kind of stuff, how would the party...
Well, it's deja vu. It will be doomsday for Guyana. Although we have won, it will be the worst rigged elections that we would have had since we returned to democracy in this land.
Mr. Persaud, thank you very much for your time to come to Berbice. I know this was a very important topic that we spoke on, and I think that we have a lot more to talk on, and I will invite you from time to time to come here and let us discuss these programs. I want to thank the callers who have made their input, and as I said, that the phone keep ringing and it's ringing out of area. I would not answer private call. I want to see that when you call, you must be brave enough so that your numbers can show up on the telephone so we can have a civil discussion. Once again, I want to thank you all out there. I want to thank Mr. Persaud for coming from
Thank you so much.
Region 3 to Region 6. I hope you have a safe journey back home.
Thank you.